Well, where am I catching you at? There's a beautiful studio setup. Where is it?
This is my own studio here in Amsterdam.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. We have 4 more studios for renting out and for projects. And then currently in the hall we have like a mini setup of my festival. So with LED screens and we probably saw it like with the AI system and everything. So we're running there the show in mini, and this is my own studio where I work. So it's a really nice space, really nice speakers. It's my dream studio basically.
Yeah. So I mean, is it the whole building is yours basically?
Yeah, that's right.
As you were sort of coming up and getting some success, was that one of the goals you had in mind to kind of have your own space?
Like I was one time I was like in the Beatport studio back then in Amsterdam. So first I had first when I started like producing for the first time was like in my parents' place when I was really young. I was playing the piano, and then I also got interested in producing. So I had like a copy of Reason 1, I think, like really old one, and like the first version. And I was playing around with this, but you couldn't call it a studio. That was just with my normal computer speakers, just playing around. And then when I went to university later, I built like in my student room when I was around 16, 17. I built like I had this old Kev monitor speakers, basically like hi-fi system with very big speakers, and I put them just on the desk, and I was producing there and got my first equipment as well. I can still have here the first synthesizer I got from like a student allowance, which I completely spent on gear. Actually, this one I still use the Ramona, super nice.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's like it's a German analog drum synthesizer, but as you see, there's like no interface. Every function has a knob, and the best part is that you have like these drums and the kick, like this pitch control here. Every little ball is almost like a whole octave, so you can make also little melodies with it. It's very musical synthesizer, very analog sounding.
Oh, that's interesting.
And, so that was my first studio, so to say. So I got some equipment and was running a little Behringer mixer, and I really like the hands-on approach of analog and hardware. Then I, at some point, moved in with one of my ex-girlfriends back then, and that was close to my parents' home. So then in my old bedroom, I built together with my brother. We made for my old bedroom, we made a studio. So we had like all these panels there that we made ourselves with rock roll in it and stuff. That was, I think, in 2014, 2015, something like this. And that all was already, and then I got like these Adams monitors, and actually the room was of course not perfect because we just did it ourselves and stuff, but it was already pretty possible to do a good mix there. And then at some point I got a chance to go in the Beatport studio that was in Amsterdam. It doesn't exist now anymore, but it's in the Nachtlab building from ID&T, where you now have Awakenings and stuff, and they rent out studios. And then one day Carl Cox was also there. And I got invited to check out the studio, and which was super excited also because Carl Cox is like my all-time hero. And then I was in the studio, and they had these amazing speakers in the wall, and everything sounded great. And I was really thinking like, well, if one day I can get something like this, that would be, it was really cool for me. So after Corona, or like at the end of Corona, like 2021, when the world started opening up in a lot of places, we got like a building where there was like nothing inside, so just concrete. And then step by step we built it up. So first it was just an empty concrete hall with nothing, and then we got first this studio here was the first thing we built. So imagine like a big empty concrete hall with just one little room in it from concrete all set. That was in the studio, and then step by step we got more studios there. We got the office for my label manager Timo, and Kiki, my fiancée, that also works a lot. She's her own studio, but she also works a lot on the management side and on things, and in the team for the label. So it's like a little office now, and with some like-minded people also make music that come here often, and that's great. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I mean, thank you for taking me through all of that, because it's super interesting. It kind of sounds like you've been building towards this, even if you didn't know it at the start, since you really started. And that's even like you using, like you still have that early synthesizer there in the back that you were using. That's fascinating, because I feel like a lot of people sort of use a piece of gear for a few years and then abandon it and move on to something else? Like, I don't know if this resonates with you, but do you feel like staying connected to like gear you were using back then, does that affect the way you make music now? Does it still like,
Yeah,
are you
definitely.
able to connect to like the kid you used to be that way?
Yeah, I have to say that this one there, like, it was funny because yesterday I was staying up late till like to make some ideas for my setup for the festival. So basically, usually when I do long sets, I will play there also 10 hours. And like on these long sets, I bring also extra equipment with. And I was watching with Kiki together, was watching an old set from the Markantine from like 8 years ago. And then I saw myself playing also on that Vermona drum computer. And I was like, fuck, I should use that again. So that one doesn't get too much use in the studio, but for live, it's amazing because it just has a certain sound that cuts through that's very different from like the roll-up machines. There's a very unique sound, and it's very inspiring in the sense that if you have a groove going on, especially with the long set, when I start usually a bit more like tech housey, like minimal techno I like a lot, like back from the 2006, 2007. And you have like these super analog sounding bleeps with a little bit reverb on it or low percussion, and it sounds really good with that machine. So that's a very inspiring piece of gear. And then I have the Roland 101, was like what the first synthesizer I got for my dad for my birthday once.
How old were you?
Very long ago. Sorry?
How old were you about?
I think 16 or something, 17. And then my dad had a collection of just as a hobbyist, like he loves music. My whole family is really into music, but he had a collection with all these old analog, like all these old vinyls. And we would listen to Kraftwerk records and stuff like this. And Jean-Michel Jarre and some others. And you have all these disco records where they have these funky bass lines. And at some point he was saying like, yeah, I think that comes from this machine, like the 101, And,
that's interesting. How did your dad know to even like what synthesizer to get you, that kind of thing? Was he musical as well?
Yeah, he's very musical. He did like for fun. Like, my dad has a bakery actually, so he has. He's a very hard-working guy, but he's very into music and he knows a lot about it just from a hobby, So he also knows a lot of people who make music, and I also actually now you ask me, I have no idea how he knew that, but he was right. It was actually as a surprise he gave me the synthesizer then, and I still use that today. Like in my live setup, we have. I still use that synthesizer because it's very basic. It's also without an interface, which I really like. Like every knob has a function, and it's really bad to get a bad sound out of it. Like almost everything you do on it sounds somehow good or usable. Of course, when it's off key but even when it's off key or like drifting, I like to use the LFO to modulate the pitch. It just gives so much tension, and the sound is always like I have it on my live set, and the way I work is like I have a backing track. Actually, I think somewhere, probably when around this interview is published, I will have somewhere online an interview where I explain it with my screen next to it, because a lot of people are asking me this always. But basically, I have like a backing track, and this is just the whole finished track, but you mute what you don't want to have in your live version. So you can choose yourself. For some tracks, I, for example, usually I get the main synthesizers I take out, so I mute them, but I leave the low percussion in, and most of all the sound effects stay in, and you still have the full arrangement with the background sounds, but the lead sounds, like usually 2 or 3 leads, I take them out, get the MIDI in my project and the original preset that's close to it, and then I have a Max for Live device that when you drag this backing track into your workspace, it loads in these presets that correspond with this track. So you actually can sort of mix it like a DJ set, although you can, if you want, you can change the MIDI, you can change the sound of the synthesizer completely. So you can tweak that live, you can choose which synthesizer you send it through. But this backing track is like sort of mastered. I do the mastering myself also for my releases. But so the important thing with this backing track is that everything still sounds really fat, especially the kick and the bass. I put a lot of effort in them, and they need to be pumped up. If you play on a big, usually my music is really festival style, like peak time. It needs to be pumped up. And I was always fighting with my live set to get this big sound, because to do this live is almost impossible, because every track needs different mastering, sort of. Like some tracks sound louder from itself than other ones, and somehow you need to balance this beforehand. Back in the days, I always had a limiter on my master and maybe a compressor. And the thing is, if you run everything from Ableton or everything like in one go, what I would always do is start pushing and pushing and pushing, and like after 2 hours, your ears are tired, and then you listen back, and your rights and heights sound like
like everything gets squashed.
Everything gets squashed because you don't hear it anymore. So for me, this was a good solution. So you still have that big fat sound, but you can also adjust everything. But for this, you need synthesizers that are capable of cutting through the mix because the backing track is mastered. And I don't run any plugins in my live set. So you have like the sound card, it comes in. The only thing I do is with the 909 that I run, it just saturates the inputs. No effects on it whatsoever. And it cuts through on top of every track, backing track I have. You can play on top of it and it gels together just because of this machine has this quality. And the 101 and, for example, the 303 as well, and some other synthesizers like the Moog Sub 37. There's some synthesizers that have this quality that they have so much power, you don't have to turn the volume that much up. It needs no compression, it needs no saturation, it just needs the right sequence for the right track. Then you put it in and it will always cut through the mix, like without effort, you just set the volume by ear. And this is why I love the 101 so much. Like it always comes through and it always gels with everything somehow.
I mean, it's fun, man. Just hearing you talk about the setup and the way you found to make it work for you. I mean, it's super fun. Like I can hear how excited you're getting to just even tell me about it, which is great because I feel like for you, I read an interesting, I think it was maybe a quote in an interview, and I wanted to ask you about it that, your live show, when you're playing fully live, a lot of it is improvisational to a certain extent, like you're talking about changing out lead sounds, all that. And I don't have the exact quote, but it was something, you were saying something like that you can actually, from your improvisational choices in your live show, you can actually get inspiration that you'll take back to the studio. So it's almost like your live performances are giving you song ideas, which is really interesting to me because I think that's almost the complete flip of what most DJs do, Like I feel like for most DJs, if you're doing a straight DJ set, the improv is maybe in how you mix it, but obviously you're not playing a lot of it live. And so a lot of it is already locked when you step on stage, and the inspiration and the studio changes, all of that comes before the live set. It's a really interesting idea to me to say, actually, the inspiration starts with the live set and then we go back to the studio. Have you always done it that way?
I think so. Like, I always wanted to. So I started at piano, as I said. So I was like a live musician. I always wanted to write my own music, but back then, piano was more like I was playing classical and was really much focused on. I want to go to music university, conservatorium, it's called in Dutch.
And you were quite good, right? Like this was like a serious thing for you at the time.
Yeah, like I was also like I could have gone to this university for music, but the last moment I decided to not do it because I was afraid that I had to. Like I love classical music and I was playing like pieces back then, like also on concerts and everything in concert halls and things like. But this was not what I want to do. I want to write music, and back then it was not really facilitated like now. Now it's super normal that somebody says, I want to become a producer, I want to become a DJ, I want to create something. And there's a complete shift in the landscape also of schools and universities, at least in Holland, from what I know. If you look at the last 20 years, I'm now 34. Back then, when I was 14, 15, 16, a bit orientating, it was completely different. Like there was not something as a producer school or something. And everything was mostly focused on, are you going to do that? If you to go to university for music, you're going to do jazz or you're going to do classical. Like, and I wanted to just make music, like something else, not per se techno, but just music in general. And
what were you listening to at the time? Like, what was inspiring you outside of classical?
And my first. If I could choose what I'd have done in life, I would become a rock star. I'm really into like Metallica and Rage Against the Machine, Rammstein. Saw also a lot of these bands live. And there's also punk stuff or like Pennywise and music like that. Oh, yeah. But on the other hand, I also really like the electronic music, but they're more like hardcore, hardstyle, trance. So
I was very similar to you, by the way, when I was about that age. Yeah.
Nice. What did you used to listen to?
I was a teenager I'm a little older than you. I was a teenager in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And so it was like, I was into a bunch of the like Rammstein. I loved like old Black Sabbath and Ozzy, R.I.P. And but then also, you know, I got caught up in the new metal wave of like Korn and Slipknot and System of a Down, that kind of stuff. Cool. And then later on moved on to like more, you know, like death metal and speed metal, you know, like the more technical stuff. But
more fun stuff.
Yeah, totally. But at the same time, I was the same as you. I was also listening to The Prodigy and Chemical Brothers and, you know, all of that kind of stuff at the same time.
Yeah, cool. So I had, my brother was lots into electronic music, so he had some tracks that he showed me back then, like Miro, Shining. I also did a remix later of it. He used to show me music like this, so that's like, but these days they would probably call it techno. I would say back then it was sort of hard. It was hardstyle, but also sort of trance, that a good melody and stuff.
Yeah.
My first performance I saw was Angerfist when I'm not sure if it's okay to say that. I was 13 then.
Oh, man, what a time to see Angerfist. That's the perfect age to go see Angerfist.
That was different, you know. You could drink legally when you were 16 and all that. It was like all very relaxed. So I was. It's also really cool that nowadays I just did like 2 weeks ago. I played with him back to back on Tomorrowland. We did the closing of Freedom Stage.
That's a full circle moment.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still a big fan. He's like one of the. Technically, like how he works and stuff, is maybe one of the best producers I ever met in the studio. Like he's really, really good.
Really, that's interesting. I think
he really knows his stuff. Yeah,
well, that's fantastic because I feel like hardstyle and just any of the harder styles in general, I think sort of get pigeonholed as like for people who don't understand it or aren't fans of that. Like it gets pigeonholed as kind of simple. So I like hearing that he's like one of the more technical producers, you know.
Yeah, but it's also logical in the sense if you think about it. Like if you want to get this amount of sound, because you have like a limitation of the speaker, and you want this distorted kick drum, but you also want a big synthesizer, and you want everything to have impact. Like the louder you go, the harder it gets, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. In the States, I feel like you could say the same thing about a lot of dubstep producers where, you know, it's like the most face-melting sounds, but at the same time, it's like the top technical wizards making it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And also because if you want to do, I think a lot of these genres, also like dubstep, I have to say, like I'm in almost every genre I can dive deep, but like dubstep and drum and bass, like I can appreciate it and I like it, but it's not something I would go to normally because I'm just very simple Dutch guy. Like for me, kick has to be bam, 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 bam. You know,
it's in your blood, man. It's in your blood.
I don't know. It's just like I get nervous when I stand on the dance floor and I'm not really sober anymore, and there comes like all the time these broken beats and stuff, and I'm like, yo, dude, just put a kick on it straight.
I mean, I feel like there's a strong history of that in like Dutch dance culture, sure. You know?
Yeah, that's true. It's like this, but I do appreciate also like the work and like these genres, like dubstep, for example, are really like sound design focused, and you cannot just load in a patch in Serum and make a nice beat. You really have to, if I understand correctly, these genres you really have to make your own bass sound and like your own way of. It's in the sound design there, the magic, you know.
Yeah.
It's not so much in the arrangement, and I think, for example, with house music for me, which was always a really sample-driven genre, I think the magic is there always more in the arrangement, sort of. It doesn't really matter what kind of tom sound. If you recorded that yourself on a tom of 50 years old in a special studio, like nobody gives a fuck because you're just dancing. It's about the arrangement and the groove and the feeling, you know.
Yeah.
So I think these things are like sort of the opposites, and I think it's the same with hardcore and a lot of techno is somewhere in the middle. I would say like the techno has some elements of the harder. Like these kind of genres, like in techno, sometimes sound design can be very prominent and can be very important. But on the other end, in techno, sometimes can also be nice to have like a standard sound, like for example, like a 303. You're standing next to me. A 303 is always nice, you know, and it's just a 303. You can maybe use a different distortion, but also this is not going to change the sound too much, but it will still work. So this is what I like about techno, is that you have like a lot of. You can choose a bit in which direction you want to go, or you want to focus on a really cool sound design. I was really into like Lucy and Xin and Speedy J and these kind of guys, like Strobe Artifacts, and I love all the things that Speedy J does. And also I worked with him in the studio a couple of times. Did some back-to-back with him, and he's like really into it. He has like this huge bunker of a studio underground in Rotterdam, and he's literally like walls of 20, 30 meters long in this bunker, and it's just full of equipment. Like the most random things you can think of, he will have it. He's just going to say there's a table in the middle, and then this huge speaker standing in the back. And then he's just saying at the beginning of a session, what should we use today? And you just walk in a sort of museum and you take some synthesizers, you put it on the table, you connect everything, and then you start jamming for 10 hours, and then later you just cut a track from that. Like it's a completely different way of working. But that way you really get in when you have like a machine in front of you and you get in it and you start tweaking it, and at some point you get this magic, how do you say it? Like this magic, happy accidents, I'd say. And then, this is also a cool way of working, but that's not how I normally do it. I like to be focused, and I want to make something that's in my head, and then step by step make that.
Well, yeah, and let me ask you, let me go back to, you were doing classical piano, you were accomplished in that field, you decided that you didn't necessarily want that to be the rest of your entire life. Once you decided to sort of expand and move on from just classical, what was the path? Did it evolve pretty quickly to get you on the new path to where you are now?
Well, actually, I was in that time also already next to that making some electronic music, but that was really when I got out of my parents' home around 16. I went to Rotterdam, I moved there, and it was back then. You talk about 2007, 2008, 2009. Techno was completely underground back then, so I started in the illegal rave scene. This was at the beginning of when techno started to get big again in Europe, at least. Most of the parties were back then trance or harder styles. This was like the commercial vibe. Was like, for example, Armin van Buuren, Chesto, these guys, Martin Garrix, EDM. These were like the big names. But we would go to illegal raves in the woods, or like next to the Rotterdam airport. There's a nice spot there for anybody watching, wondering where to do a good rave. There's like a little forest there, and we would just jump over the water with our stuff. And then build some speakers there. And because it's next to an airport, nobody's going to care because there's no one anyway.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. How big were these illegal raves?
Well, actually, that was the thing, because techno got bigger. Like when I started, and like this was like some communities. And throughout the years, like at some point I moved to Amsterdam, and then I met like some other groups. It was like these collectives, like a collective of people who everybody just came there, and one person would fix the bar and somebody else would fix the sound system, and then you had the DJs obviously playing that play there, and everything just fixed itself, So I think some of these parties were like 50 to 100 people, but at some point we had, I think the biggest one, like a friend of me, it was called Tussen ons back then, I think. That means between us. Okay. And they had the idea to have like this huge empty office space with like 10 floors, I think, and a basement. We took the basement stage and played there. It was super nice. It looked like a club almost, with lasers and everything. And every floor was a different genre. So we had drum and bass, we had techno, we had everything. And like, I think 50 DJs or something playing. And I think this was the biggest illegal rave that they ever caught in Holland, because every floor could hold 500 people at least. Wow. So it was like really big. But the best part was the police came, obviously, because they saw this online. Back then you had Facebook, and they just came like with the news. It was super funny, but they were very chilled about it. Nobody got arrested, and the police was also nice, Like the Holland is a chill place. Like as long as you don't make trouble, they also are like, hey, just turn off the music, otherwise we take your synthesizer away. But for the rest, it's okay. But they started on the top floor. So by the time they had everybody out from top to the basement, we were still running at 4 at night. So we had a great party there. That's really,
that's
really
great.
Special.
They helped you out. They just funneled everyone to you.
We got lucky that they started upstairs. So, but it was good times. And sometimes we also had where they have, I think Digital does their parties there often. And back in the day, she had also the Drum Code Festival there. It's the MDSM Wharf. There's a lot of events there. In Amsterdam, we used to do also illegal parties there, and this was like in an industrial place on the grass there, and the police would come and they would just say, hey, as long as nobody complains and you clean your mess afterwards, have fun, knock yourself out. So sometimes they were super chill, and it was all. I'm not sure if today's is still the same, because this was maybe also different times, but it was super relaxed. So these illegal raves started to become pretty big at some point. Like it was common to have like 500 people there or something, which is quite a crowd, And there were also people who would come back, and this also helped build my career back then. That these people also told like to friends like, hey, this is good to see this special. I can do it with my live set. But to translate them, to come back to the question because it's a super long answer. I think.
No, it's great.
But it's like to translate that underground rave, to translate it into making your job out of music, because this costs only money, because you come there, you bring your gear with. I had this old crappy car that I would stuff all the gear with. We would drive there and then build everything up. And then you also had to risk, if the police was a bit angry, that you had to run away with your synthesizers, really, because otherwise they would confiscate your stuff, So they were literally running for the police a couple of times because they wanted to take my equipment. Yeah, that's how it goes, Yeah. So it was there's not something you made that you do it for the love, and I'm really happy also that I got this whole way of. I've been playing for years and years, like on smaller stages, and I never got management, or I got like in the really in the picture or something. I was really frustrated because I wanted to be my job to become a producer and do my live sets and be on the big stages, obviously. And so a lot of big DJs were playing my music for many years. So I was at some point in 2014, I was almost finishing my studies. I come on Awakenings Festival as a visitor. And there's like literally every DJ played back then at least 1 or 2 tracks of me, like original. So yeah, I was there, Pampled, Carl Cox, Richie Houghton. And I have to say that's an amazing feeling, because when you're there tripping balls and you stand there and you hear suddenly your track and your friends are like, hey, that's your track, right? And like, yes. It's maybe even better than playing it yourself, This feeling
and it's your heroes up there playing it. Yeah.
It's amazing, And you also hear it on this big sound system, and when the track then also works, like, there's almost no better feeling, but then the next day I was thinking like, yeah, fuck, like nobody who was there has an idea that it's my tracks, and maybe it would be. I think I'm ready to play maybe also there at a festival like this, but it just didn't happen or something, and then that was really frustrating for me. Like I got sometimes these bookings, but to get, for example, in the local club scene, as you also know, like sometimes like this first step to get to like the local club scene for paid shows, like this is so hard protected by the residents there. It's really hard to get between this, like because everybody's afraid for his own spot, and you need to get there first before you get to the festivals usually, or you need to maybe sign some management deal. And luckily I didn't do this because there's a lot. This is a stage where a lot of artists think like, what, I've just signed everything away, and then at least I got also a deal offered. I cannot name who that was, but that's a big organization, and they said that, what, if you sign this, we take all the money you ever make with music, but we will put you there on the main stage, everything. Almost signed it, luckily I didn't, but it was very tempting because I thought like, yeah, okay, then I can at least live my dream and make music, and focus on this.
Yeah.
And then my parents said to me, when I finished my studies, I got a job offer from via at a bank or something. I studied finance, but I never want to work in banking. If I would do something with my studies, I would do research. I like research, just sit down and just, why does something happen like how it happens, and just research that.
Well, I read you got 2 degrees, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2 masters. But I like the research side, but they did offer a job, and by then I had like my student loan. I was always maximum using this for getting my studio gear, some other gear, and party, like this. Yeah. So I was like, fuck, I need to pay this back. So I need a job, otherwise I'm fucked, And then I got this job offer, and then I went to my dad and my mom, and I was like, yeah, but what should I do? Because and they just said like, you just try music for 1 year, and if it doesn't work, then you can always look for a normal job, because maybe in 10 years you're very unhappy when you don't do music. You can never get back to this, because when you have a family or you have a home and you have a job, you're not going to try this again probably. And then when this happened, like really in 2 weeks, I get a reply to a demo from Oliver Koletsky from Still for the Land, which is from Berlin, a label that was really big back then. This guy took me with on tour, signed some tracks, and let me play on peak time after him on his shows in Germany, because he liked the music so much. And in a couple of months, I was touring the whole world. Like everything came together.
Wow.
So the timing was really lucky, but there was like a preparation to come there for so long that it got so frustrating. At some point I was thinking like, fuck all this shit, I stop, But I'm happy that it happened like this, because I played so many super shit sets in front of 100 people. Yeah, who cares? Doesn't matter, because it was just 100 people. And if I would have played a set like that on a stage at Awakenings, then that would be your last time.
Probably once you got blasted off like that, you were more ready for it. You know, you had put in all those hours, you had practiced in front of tiny little crowds, figured out what works and what doesn't, and you can handle problems better. Like, was it a crazy adjustment once you were sort of thrown into touring the world?
No, yeah. Actually, I think I was at that point pretty ready for it. Like, also because I did my partying when I was younger, you know, and I still like to party, as a lot of people know. I'm also pretty open with this. Like, I'm not somebody who's always sober, you know. Like, a lot of people claim this always. I'm not. I like to party, but I'm also happy that in Dutch, you have a saying, to lose your wild hairs. I think it's in English the saying, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, I had my fair shares of good raves when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, you know. So it's good to have already encountered that from another perspective. And then by the time when I started touring the world, I really had the feeling that I was kind of ready for it. The only thing that I was not ready for back then, like, I'm really tall. I'm over 2 meters. So that's like, I don't know, it's like almost 7 feet.
Yeah, like 6'10" or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 7. So, so obviously, I got my bookings from Australia and China, like just after this in 2016. Super excited to go there. But with this length, and you sit in economy, so I was like sitting there, literally, like, no joke, like on this flight, like this with my legs up, and in the end, I just thought, you know what, I just stand up and walk through the plane, because it just doesn't work. So this was the part but even that didn't matter, you know. Like, I was like, fuck it, I was so happy to play finally, you know, what you all work all these years for.
Yeah.
So I went to India, Mexico, South America, and then a year or two later, I got my visa for US and started playing there at the EDC parties and things. And yeah, it was a great time, and everything went really, everything went very fast, but also like step by step every year, you know. And it was not, it was in the end, obviously it went like this, but still, like, every year I have the feeling some more things fall in place and work, and it's a good feeling, definitely.
Well, let me ask you this, because you know, this whole story, obviously you're a very hard worker. It sounds like you've been able to focus and be serious about what you're doing from a young age. But then, as you just said, you know, you like to party and you're open with that as well. How do you balance those things? Because I think there's a few legendary partiers in the DJ world who have just been kind of at it for decades, and we all know them. But it's rare, man. Like, I feel like most people cannot balance taking their work very seriously and their party very seriously.
Yeah, I have to say, like, for once, I don't want to make anybody upset about this, but I think a lot of people also misrepresent how much they actually party.
Sure, of course.
Social media. It's also a good thing, but I think, like, the successful people out there, like, look, for example, at somebody like Sven Veit, that I look a lot up to. This guy also, if you see him, like, I saw him once, and I think, how many years ago is that? Like 18 years ago, and he was just putting a vinyl on, and he just puts his pants down or something, like, on stage, in front of a couple thousand people in a club in Rotterdam, and he starts dancing around with the vinyl like this. Fucking legendary, you know. Yeah. But I think as some people, if you get a bit older, you also at some point get a bit more calm, you know. And I think also some people can handle it better than others. Like, everybody has his own limits. So I think with everything in life, like, I think it's very important to listen to yourself. Like, for example, I have now today or the last days. Like, normally I'm not that stressed, but I have my own festival coming up in a couple of weeks, where I have this AI that I trained on my own stuff, and festival preparations the last weeks are like, I have a production partner, obviously, Free Your Mind, which I do it, but the preparations and everything to get this whole new thing right. And I also do a lot of back-to-backs with other artists that also, some of them need to call, like, hey, what are we going to do exactly? What do you think? Because it's sometimes good that if you play for the first time back-to-back with somebody to have a bit of a chat, like what we're going to do. And basically you have to take care of like 2 setups. My normal live setup for the day, so I play there 10 hours. And then you have this AI system that I play back-to-back with, that we're still tweaking and still working on. Like, it's obviously already working. We also used it last year.
Yeah, I want to talk in a minute. Let's dig into that a little more.
So the thing is, like, then you get at some point so many things at one time. Then I also know that maybe now is not the time to, when I, for example, have my show this weekend, I will not drink that much as what I maybe otherwise. But Nature One, it's one of my favorite shows every year. I come there for many years already. So maybe I go a bit earlier to bed than normally, you know, because I know that the next day I have to work, be sharp, and these kind of things. And I think, you have to just listen to yourself. Like, for everybody has his own things he likes and doesn't likes, and you also have to accept that some people can endure with some things more than others. Like, some people can handle stress better, some people can handle physical load better, some other people can handle alcohol better and other stuff, you know. Like, so it's just the most important thing is, as long as you're happy and healthy, then it's all right, you know. And as soon as you think you're not, then it's also important that you look for talk with people about it, you know. Like, it's like, also don't try to fix a problem alone, but have people that know actually what are you doing. Also, people who party in general, like people around you. It's good if people know what you're actually doing in the weekend. Like, how much do you actually drink? Like, what parties do you go? What, you know, like, if you talk with people about it, already gets 10 times easier, and then they can also say maybe to you, like, hey, calm down a bit, or you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's all really smart, man. It's cool you've been able to just land there. And I think you're right that some people just handle certain things better than others. You know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but
exactly. Yeah.
It's cool, man. I think it's a good lesson for anybody that, like, you know, you kind of, in a job like this where the perception is party all the time, fun all the time, and the reality is that there's so much hard work behind it that, you kind of not only do you have to plan your working, but you almost have to plan your fun as well.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And also, especially when you're touring, you also, like, with things like, when you have this amazing show on a Thursday and you decide to stay there till the end, and it's all great, but then you're like, oh fuck, I have to fly. In 2 hours I have to go to the airport. And I have to say, when I was younger, like when I just started touring, I was so excited that they paid my hotel and that my flight, and that I could come somewhere, and I just had to play, and I could pay my rent for my small apartment, you know, and I could just come there on Monday back. And the only thing I had to do was make music. It was like one of the happiest moments in my life, you know. So I was able to go in a weekend. I fly to the other side of the world. I party 3 days straight, and I fly back and I do another show, because I was just so happy. And also, I was way younger also. When I have now to go straight from a party to an airport, I get too old for this shit, man. It's not worth it for me anymore.
But that's good too. That's the other important thing, is realizing that you're going to be a different person so many times over the course of a long career, and say, this works for me now, this won't work for me later. I have to figure out something new, you know, all that. It's smart, man. It's a good perspective. But wait, I want to go back and talk about this AI that you've trained on your own music and you're performing with at this point. Yeah. For people who don't know, is there like a quick, can you summarize sort of how it works?
Yeah, definitely. So I did also a couple of keynote speeches on AI conference and stuff about this, because it's quite a technical, but I tried just to keep it not so technical. But so basically what I did, normally you have an AI system, AI with machine learning, and it works like you have like a whole bunch of pictures or a whole bunch of music or whatever, and you want to figure out what the relationship between this is, like a sort of magical formula with which you can create those things. So the AI is just going to try a lot of, the machine learning is basically you reward the machine for making a model that gets better in predicting something or making something. So it just starts as a very dumb thing, and like every model, it makes billions of iterations, and at some point it gets better and better. At some point it can make that picture that you asked for, or it can make a piece of music. So this is in a nutshell what it is. What I don't like is that there is now big companies, and I'm not going to mention names, but basically all the big AI companies, they just take everybody's hard work and they put it on a big pile and they train on it and they say, fuck you, and we don't pay you. This is not okay. So basically I started this also to make a sort of statement against that, because that's why I trained the AI just on my own tracks. So there's only, you need a lot of tracks for that. I have over 80 days of recorded music. So I kept everything since I'm little.
God damn.
But I can also say most of it is crap. I mean, most of these tracks you will never hear. They're really bad. But somehow the AI can still learn from it, because we just tossed them all in. And then over the course of the last, I think 6 years now, like in 2019, I had a friend also from my finance, from econometrics back in 2010. And I met him again in Berlin when he was living there. We used to go sometimes to parties in the weekend, and like we're friends, good friends. And in 2019, we were just at an after party actually, and he started telling about machine learning, which was then like completely new. And then he showed me like some equations you could fix with that, like in seconds that normally would take you ages, you know. And then we came to the idea to do something with music with this. So then we started over the years to do slowly something with it, and now we have a model. It can just generate something random, or you ask it to make something and it tries to create as good as possible that you ask it for, and it can continue where you left. And this is what we use on the festival. So basically, I'm playing, and then the AI is like we have the supercomputer in the back, literally in a box, a container with the programmer, my friend Cas, who is sitting down there to make sure that things don't crash, and if they crash, that he fixes it. And when I tap a button, it starts listening. And when I stop the button, it stops listening, and then it starts to continue from what I'm playing there. It starts to continuate, so it starts generating music from that point, which sounds kind of like me, but it's not. And then I have this on one channel on the mixer, and I can play on top of this, and then it listens again to what I am doing, and it adjusts to that as well. So it's like you have a sort of extra pair of hands. You can do things that you normally cannot do.
And are you previewing what it's doing, or is it going straight out?
It goes straight out. There's no time to preview because I also have my own live set. So I did the last time, like I looked on the screen first, and then I sort of delayed by 16 bars what he's doing, just to look at the waveform to see if it's like, because sometimes back then, now we fix them a little bit better, but sometimes there would come also like sort of mistakes in the sense that there was just almost no output, just a high tone. And when I see then the kicks, I know, okay, this probably something that's going to sound all right. And I mix it slowly in, and then I hear, okay, this sounds pretty good. And then I keep it in.
That's so interesting. I mean, the idea of just training it on your music, does it sort of feel like playing with yourself, if that makes sense? Like if it, puts something out, improvises something, does it almost feel familiar to you, or like a choice you might have made?
It actually does sound a little bit like me. So, but what we did now this year, we also another guy from a university who's like almost finished in AI and robotics, a friend of a friend, and I was thinking like, can we maybe build robots that go over the synthesizer? And because these old synthesizers, like the 909, for example, I want to have the same setup that I use, so the TR909, the drum computer, the SH101 and the Moog. These have knobs for the controlling the sound that cannot be changed with MIDI. So you have to physically move those knobs. So now we have these robots built that go over the synths, that are able to move the knobs and like trigger the notes and the drum pads. So instead of just having the AI generate music, because the problem is, like from a show element, like people really didn't know what is the AI doing, what are you doing. So for this, to make this more clear, we have now part of the AI is going to literally play the same synthesizer that I'm playing, like right next to me, and you see them actually moving. So we have like these robots on top of them, and then there's a hologram behind it. And this hologram, you have like a sort of trippy computer version of me, sort of saying when the AI does something, the hologram goes on. And then the AI is doing something, and then the synthesizers start to move, like with these robots.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is really cool, like for the show effect. So we're figuring that now out. We have it now here standing in the hall. But obviously there's still some troubleshooting to make this all very smooth. But it's really cool.
I mean, dude, I appreciate the way you do everything the hard way. Like, I appreciate that you kind of give yourself these problems to solve, because I think it's not what most people do, and it makes what you do super unique. Like you said this earlier, but I want to make sure people heard it. Like you do these long, crazy sets, 10-hour marathon style sets, which is more common in techno than other places, but still 10 hours is 10 hours. I mean, that's crazy.
And with live, it's actually the world record. Like
I was going to say, you've got the Guinness World Record, right?
Yeah. And probably we'll get now another one for being the first one to perform with an AI of yourself on stage.
Was that a goal at a certain point, or did they kind of just notice what you were doing?
Actually, I have to say, when I was little, we had always this at school. We had this Guinness World Record books, and I was always fascinated by it. And I was always thinking it would be cool to be in that one day. then when I at some point was playing one time, I did actually one time instead of over 12 hours, but then we didn't have any from the world record to record it because you have to plan this in, they send somebody to check and it has to be really live and everything is filmed, like it's very serious, which I hate. I hate when people are looking at my hands, but this for me also a step to do this because I don't know, I just don't like it. When I'm playing live, I don't want anybody to look at my live set and see exactly what I'm doing. Like, it just doesn't feel right, Anyway, but that's what you have to do for it. So I did one time 12 hours already, and actually people were saying to me, like, why don't you go to this world record? Because there's nobody else who played this long live. The longest live set before that was 5.5 hours, I think. So in techno or in dance music, solo. Then there's a set from Ages of Time that is 12 hours, but these are 3 people and they all play 4 hours. They do then they sit down. That's not the same. This was like 11 hours, 11 minutes. Without pissing in between or anything, like just I think one time in a bottle under the stage, discreetly.
Yeah, of course.
But it was very awkward because I'm also pretty tall, so I have to tuck it down, and then
yeah. Everybody maybe knows what's happening. Yeah.
But it was nice. So that was very special, a special moment.
What are you like at the end of that?
At the end of that, I usually just sit down and then I can do. I don't know, do you have at some point when you zone out so much because you're making music, you hear absolutely nothing anymore. You're just forgetting everything and you're just like sort of feeling the energy of the people. That sounds very spiritual, but this is what music can be sometimes. So after a couple of hours, so you begin, there's nobody, people come in. I'm playing a bit slower still, and then you feel like you're from hearing the people and like from how they move around, and you just feel this energy, and then you can adjust your music to that. And at some point, you get this ball of energy between the people and yourself. That at the end, you get so crazy music that you would normally never make, and it's like really fitted to the moment, like the energy of the crowd. And you completely forget that you're who you are, where you are, what you're doing. I just hear the music, and then sort of automatically move things around, and it's effortless, and this feeling is super, super great. Like, this is the best feeling there is. And then you stop, and the music is gone, and in my head, the music continues then for hours. And then, so usually, actually, obviously, we're going to have a drink then with them. Everybody was there with my friends and family. These long sets usually with some of my family comes, my brother and my parents. But then actually, I'm thinking like, I would maybe like to go in the studio and continue to make some things. Actually, sometimes I also do that then. But no, usually I'm just with friends and partying a bit and after. But it's I don't know. You're still in the whole music thing then.
I love it, man. I mean, it's like we were saying earlier, what the thing you're creating with the crowd, the thing you make together with them can become inspiration for music you'll make in the future. And it's a cool thing, man, that most DJs don't get. And it's very cool that you figured out a way to do that for yourself. And I think it does go into what makes your music so unique. You mentioned at the start of this that you had been in the studio with Carl Cox early on, and that he's everybody's hero. He's your hero. He's my hero. But, it's gone on another full circle moment. Eventually, you also mentioned you have your label, and I saw that you had a release with Carl Cox on your label. And I just wanted to mention it because you had brought up his name, like your relationship with him, what it's like, how it's grown, and sort of just that crazy full circle moment of, knowing who he is, watching what he does, being in the studio with him to go on to end up releasing music on your own label with him. I think that's a rare thing for a guy like Carl Cox.
It was unbelievable, really, because I was always looking up to him. And even for example, my dad is a fan of Carl Cox. These guys has been so long around, like he's everybody's hero, as you said. And so for the first time I met him, I was surprised about this guy actually cares. He remembers people's names. I don't know how he does that because he meets so many people, but he takes time for everybody. And it doesn't matter if it's like a superstar DJ or some guy that makes music in his bedroom. He doesn't give a fuck, So I was talking with him and I gave him a demo. And then he literally, the same night, he's closing a super big show here in Holland. And he just pulls out this stick of the demo and starts smiling, puts it in, listens 2 seconds to it, and he closes his set with it. Like, no joke. And because he did ask me how good is the track, and I did also say him, like, I think if you play it tonight, it might really work. I think it's a really good track. And he said, really? And a friend of him also heard the track already, and he was like, yeah, it might be. And this guy just pulls out the stick, puts it in, and blows it there in front of 20,000 people. And then we released it on his label. And then he lives in Australia, so he has there this amazing studio, and nice weather, kangaroos and stuff. And then next to it, he also owns like a motorsport company. So he has like professional racing team. So there's a garage with all these amazing, these are like these track racing cars, you know, and usually like these muscle cars that get built with a parachute on and that go like fucking fast. And he's also professional in this. So the guys from the garage actually walk into the studio to check out, hey, what are you guys cooking today? And I was like super chill, which I found super unique already. And we were working on a track, and it was really, that was Inferno, the track we released with him and Christopher Cole. And then we finished the track, and at some point he says, hey, you have a label, right? Should we release it there? And he puts on the cap from the label, we make a picture together. Says, it's nice for the release. And I was like, is this a joke, you know? But he was, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, it's cool. And yeah, I'm super thankful for that. And I think there's like everybody could learn in the music scene a bit from this guy, like how he approaches things and how, I don't know, this is super special to give somebody the chance, obviously, because obviously he doesn't win too much with that, you know, he just does it because he likes what you do, and he just also gives to people, you know, with these things. And I still couldn't believe it then. And also for our label, like it was already going good, but after Carl did the track with us, it went crazy. And still nowadays, like the track has been used in commercials, in super big Hollywood productions. Like this is a track that also gets sometimes on TV still, because it's like a sort of techno classic, so to say. Like, so every year we get, I think now it's coming soon in some sort of a BBC series or something, like some crime thriller. I don't know. Anyway, but then it's so funny. There's the club scene then, and they play in the background that track, you know, and then I have all these memories from making that, and that he gave us to us then. And yeah, it's incredible.
Oh, man. Well, okay. I'm glad I asked that, because there's a lot of lessons in there, man. I mean, just staying humble, obviously, but also the story about him playing the song of yours that he hadn't even heard, closing a festival with it. Like, that's a beautiful, because that to me tells me that he is still understands like the fun of this, and like what's really important is like the discovery of new music and pushing it forward, and not taking yourself so seriously that you can't just fuck around at a festival with a kid you just met, you know, like that. Because that's really what this is all about.
The feeling like he listened 2 seconds and that he can decide in 2 seconds if that's worthy for it. That's also a skill, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's also a genius. He's like one of the best DJs alive. So yeah, that's also an incredible part.
But seriously, that moment was really like still this face also, that he was smiling during this. He plays this track and he's like, ha ha ha. And you cannot even dream of this, you know. It's just so good.
Oh man, well that's such a nice happy note to wrap this up on. Is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else you want to get out there before we sign off?
No, I think it was a really nice talk, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. No, this was fantastic. I'm in a great mood. I hope you had fun, and thank you for taking the time to do it.
Of course, man. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.